So, just a couple of days ago, I watched a movie called Heretic, and I believe someone on my YouTube channel recommended it to me. So, I thought, hey, why not? I'll give this movie a watch. And I did, and let me tell you, I was not disappointed with this movie. It was a creepy ass horror movie. This film delivers on what it's supposed to do, which is to make you go through a thrilling and disturbing experience. I must say so myself. So this movie is it's a horror movie, it's a thriller, but it's also a very, very existential and philosophical movie, and it gets into the nitty-gritty grooves of the acrimonious and contentious discussion over religion and the purpose of life, and do we have a creator, and is there a God, and it's very depressing, but at the same time it reflects a very dark reality of the world, which is the vicious and the vicious and dark and vitriolic hatred towards religion, and how evil that can get, how dark and violent and murderous, I should say, that can get. So, I'm going to talk to you guys about the movie. I'm going to give you guys my review, but I'm also going to give you guys my commentary because the film is extremely existential, very existential. So, the film is about two girls who are Mormons, and they are Mormon missionaries. And one of them is more assured about her faith than the other, or at least that's what it appears to be. There's two girls, like I said. One is from Pennsylvania, the other is from Utah. And the girl who is from Utah, her last name is, I don't remember her last name, but we'll just call her the Utah girl. So the girl who's from Utah is just raised Mormon and was told about Mormonism her whole life. And so that's all she knows is Mormonism. And she knows all of the Mormon talking points. And on the surface, she appears to be the one who is more dedicated or more really, really just anxious about fulfilling the demands of her church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The other girl, she's from Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania girl. Pennsylvania girl was not born Mormon. Mother was a convert, and she sort of had to go through the research about Mormonism, and her mother went her mother researched Mormonism, and they tried different churches, and then they settled on Mormonism. So she has a more analytical view of Mormonism. Now, I'm not a Mormon. Obviously, you guys know me. For those of you who have been watching this channel, you know I'm not a Mormon. I disagree with Mormonism. I debated at one point in time one of the LDS's biggest apologists years ago. His name is I think his name was John Tanner or something like that. I don't remember, but it was many years ago, back in 2011, the good old days, ancient times. So I'm not a fan of Mormonism. That's not the point of me doing this review. The point of me doing this review is to talk to you guys about a very well done film because I love movies. And secondly, it's to tell you guys my commentary on a very, very existential and dark reality that the film touches upon, because the movie does touch upon religion, but it also touches heavily on the hatred towards religion and how dangerous that can be. So, Pennsylvania girl, more analytical, Utah girl, more emotional. So they are going to these addresses that they have been scheduled to visit because the owners of these homes have called in to request to have a conversation about Mormonism. So these girls, they're not going to random homes. They're going to homes, the owners of which requested their presence to discuss Mormonism. All right. So they go to this house, and the house is it's very interesting looking. It's almost Victorian looking, old school. it looks European. I remember seeing the house thinking, man, you don't see a whole lot of houses like that. Well, maybe you do. Maybe if you were to go to Connecticut, you would see a house like this. But the house is super just old looking, and it's creepy and dark and eerie, and it's raining. Or actually, no, it's raining, but it begins to snow. And they go to the house, they knock on the door, and there's this guy there. And this guy is English. And when I saw the actor, I didn't know who the actor was when I saw the trailer, to be honest with you. I didn't. My memory didn't initially click as to who this actor was. But when I saw the scene where the guy opens up the door, I thought, oh my goodness, that's the dude who played in Love Actually. He played in Love Actually, and he played in Bridget Jones's Diary, and I have never seen any of those films, but I remember those movies being very popular, being very popular back in the day. We're talking early 2000s. So I thought, that's the romantic comedy guy. What the hell is he doing here? But he's there. And this actor, you see, this actor is very famous for being a romantic comedy guy, and he has a certain look. He has the look of an actor who plays in romantic comedies. And he's got the English accent. He's an English actor. His name is Hugh Grant. Very popular actor. And women love him. Why? Because, well, he's English and he's charming. And, oh, he has that smile. He has that charming smile and the accent. Oh, my gosh, the accent. This ain't no romantic comedy. This actor really shows his psycho side. And I've talked about this before. Acting is not pretending. Acting is expressing a part of who you are. I've talked about this many times. Acting is expressing truth through a particular character, expressing a true part of yourself through a character. So if you are a good leader, you're going to play a really good leader in a movie. Denzel Washington, Tom Hanks, they play really good leaders. If you are villainous, you are going to play a really good villain. If you look at the guy who played in There Will Be Blood, or the guy who played in The Patriot as Colonel Tavington, these actors were really good as playing victims because, and I'll make this assumption because they play such good psychopaths, that part of who they are is a little bit psychopathic, at least a little bit, right? At least. I'm being charitable here. So this actor, he plays such a good psychopath. He plays evil really well. He depicts an evil character really well. And that tells me that he's got a little villain in him. This guy, the actor, has got at least a little bit of a villain in him. And he really shows that. And I'm going to say it right now. This is one of the best depictions of evil that I've ever seen. This guy is right up there with the dude from Red Dragon, Anthony Hopkins, the guy when he was playing Hannibal. He's right up there with the Indian actor who played the villain in the Temple of Doom. I mean, this guy is right up there. He plays the perfect depiction of evil. And what do I mean by that? Well, when he opens the door to let the ladies in, he is romantic comedy Hugh Grant. Straight up. And women love that. They love this dude's personality. They love his character. Oh, he's got the smile, and he feels so welcoming, right? When you look at him, he just has the look of someone who's welcoming you. Oh, come in, and he has that English charm, right? Oh, come in. Oh, come in, ladies. Oh, come in. And it's just so perfectly done. So as soon as you see this scene, you're thinking, is this guy evil? How could this guy be evil? He seems so welcoming. He seems so hospitable. And he's playing this character. He's romantic comedy. He's Love Actually. You know, he's the clumsy, charming Englishman. This ain't no romantic comedy, and this is not Love Actually. So he lets the ladies in, and they're hesitant to come in, and they're saying, well, you know, we prefer the presence of a lady to be in the house because that's the policy of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We're not allowed to go into a house when there's only a man present. And he says, oh, don't worry, my wife is in the house. She's in the home. She's baking a pie for me. Do you want some pie? Do you like pie? Do you ladies like pie? Do you ladies like pie? Right? And he's romantic comedy. He's Mr. Romantic Comedy. And they fall for it because the guy is so convincing, right? You are convinced that this person is not evil when you see this scene. So they go into the house, right? Because he's very good at bringing your guard down. And this truly is evil, right? This is the personification of evil right here. Evil is not, horns and a weird tail and a pitchfork. Evil is welcoming. Evil is embracing. Evil, when you see it at the surface, it pulls you in, and it does a really good job at pulling you in. And these girls are pulled in. So now they're in the house, and they are ready for this guy's trap. And he is, at this point, he is still Mr. Romantic Comedy. He's Love Actually. And he's, oh, well, I am very interested in religion. I want to let you know that right from the beginning of our discourse here. I am very much into religion. Religion is very important. Very, very important. So these girls are excited. Wow, this guy, he's English and he's super into religion, and he has invited us into his home to discuss Mormonism. So, wow, it looks like we could get a convert for the LDS, and they're very enthusiastic, very excited, as you can imagine. So they're discussing things, and he's constantly changing the subject. They want to talk religion, but he's talking about, oh, my wife's blueberry pie. My wife has a blueberry pie. She's baking in the oven right now. You'll love it. Oh, you'll love it. Right? And he gives them Coca-Cola, and it's welcoming. Then there is this moment of the movie where you know in your heart of hearts that it's about to turn very, very dark very quickly. And that is when he puts these giant, wide spectacles on his face. I call them the serial killer or the mass shooter glasses. This is the big, round spectacles. I don't know the exact term for these types of glasses, but you know what I'm talking about. And as soon as he puts those glasses on, you know this ain't Love Actually. This is not Bridget Jones's Diary. This is not a romantic comedy. We are about to get into serial killer territory. This is going to get dark. And the whole, when he puts those glasses on, the actor does a really good job in just completely shifting his vibe to something very, very sinister, right? To something, romantic comedy, welcoming, to Red Dragon, Hannibal Lecter. This is going to get very sick. And the whole energy of the scene changes. And it's a very well done scene. I mean, I'm telling you, this film is very well directed. $10 million budget, very well executed, very well directed movie. It proves that you don't need a huge budget to make a good movie. So then he starts questioning them about religion. But he does it in a very malicious way. And again, I'm not a fan of Mormonism. But atheists will hate all religion. And so when they attack Islam, when they attack Mormonism, you may agree, right? Let's say you're a Protestant or a Catholic or an Eastern Orthodox Christian. You may agree with the atheist in his critique of Islam, but understand that his critique is coming from a place of hatred towards religion, including your own. Just remember that. The communists hated religion. They hated all religion. And they killed people of all faiths, of various different faiths. Their main target was Christians, but they attacked people of various faiths. They did not like religion, and that's an understatement. But he begins to attack their religion in the most existential way, right? In the deepest way you can imagine. And so he starts to bring up Christianity, and he brings up Judaism, and he brings up Islam, and he brings up their religion, Mormonism. And he describes all these religions as giant farces and scams. And he says that there is no evidence for any religion. There is no evidence for any of these things that you believe in. It's all bollocks. It's all nonsense. And as I was watching this movie, I was thinking, you have to get an English actor to play this character. You could not get an American. It just could. It wouldn't work, right? I mean, it would be there, but it would not have been as effective. The English, this actor, as soon as he puts those glasses on, he goes full Richard Dawkins on these girls. And he is attacking religion in the most vitriolic way. To the point where it's just, you feel like you're watching a YouTube video and there's Richard Dawkins or some British atheist talking. But it had to have been an English actor for this role. Why do I say that? Because nobody can beat the English in the sport of God hating. Nobody. The English are the masters of God hating. They are. They are the masters of it. And when they go against God, not only will they utilize very effective marketing and rhetorical tactics, look at people like Dawkins, Michael Ruse, or Christopher Hitchens, but they will actually develop an entire science to make it though as if there is no God, and science has proven that there is no God. They came up with the theory of evolution. Now you'll say it was Charles Darwin. But if you actually look at if you actually look at the history of how he developed the theory of evolution, Darwin was also heavily influenced by his grandfather, Erasmus Darwin. And Erasmus Darwin developed a theory of evolution, albeit it was sort of a prefiguring of evolution. It was like a beta version of evolutionism. But if you ever read the writings of Erasmus Darwin in regards to evolutionism, it's pretty close to what Darwin would later on teach. So evolutionism was something that was ripe for the English people, and for some reason, the English just declared war on God. I'm not saying all of them, but you can look at the history of England and you can see, wow, it was the first country to officially become Protestant. It was the first country, I believe, to have a Protestant king, King Henry the Third, or the Eighth, or whatever his name was. And this guy hated the Catholic Church with a passion, and he resorted to Protestantism because he wanted a divorce, and he was, I think, beheading his wives. I mean, the guy was a sick bastard. And Henry would later on kill St. Thomas More because St. Thomas More said, listen, I don't think you're the Pope. You're not the Pope. And he beheaded St. Thomas More. So the guy, I mean, England has a history of being hostile towards religion. Now you'll say, well, that's Protestantism versus Catholicism. But Protestantism really laid the foundations for the Enlightenment. And it is within the Enlightenment where you find these earlier versions of evolutionism. Erasmus Darwin, he was a part of the Enlightenment. And then later on, Charles Darwin really creates, in a serious way, a codified presentation of this idea of evolutionism. So really, the English, when it comes to God hating, the English, they're on top of the line. Now you could say, well, what about Karl Marx? Karl Marx was heavily influenced by Darwin, and I think that he dedicated one of his books to Charles Darwin. So no one can beat the English in the sport of God hating. I mean, if you even watching videos of England, watching videos filmed in England, you just feel atheism. It's just a vibe. It just comes right out of that country. And I remember watching this movie many years ago. It was directed by a guy named Ben Stein, and it was about atheism. And it was a really well done movie. And in this documentary that Ben Stein did, he interviewed this English guy named Michael Ruse. And he asked Michael Ruse, he said, you know how Ben Stein, he's got that super nonchalant, monotone voice, and he says, so how do we go? You know, he's the guy who used to do marketing for eye drops, Red Eye, and Ben Stein says, so how do we go from non-life to all of a sudden life being there? And Michael Ruse says, well, life began on the backs of crystals. This is the English guy talking. Life began on the backs of crystals. So how do we go? But he says, but it began with no life, right? The whole universe at one point in time had no life on it. So how do we go from mud to all of a sudden there being consciousness and life? And he says, I told you already. I told you already. On the backs of crystals. In the English, you know, they're very snappy people. I mean, not all of them, but they have that. They can have that snappiness to them. Oh, I told you already. On the backs of crystals. And Ben Stein goes, on the backs of crystals, right? So there is this culture of God hating, and last I checked, about 53 or something like that % of the English people say they have no religion. So England is a majority non-religious country, and they gave us Richard Dawkins, they gave us Christopher Hitchens, they gave us Michael Ruse, they gave us a lot of these atheist thinkers, And they want us to think, I mean, it's very depressing, right? The whole atheistic perspective, the whole atheistic worldview is extremely depressing. It's just, we came from bacteria. And that's what they teach. They want you to, they come over and they overwhelm you with these depressing theories like, well, we all came from bacteria that was swimming in a swamp. That's what we came from. Bacteria, everyone. So just bacteria. Yes, that's right, bacteria. And the guy who's talking to you, who's telling you these things, he's got a gray hair and he looks like he's about to enter the coffin any day. And just the depression is seeping right out of them. We're all just conscientious bacteria. That's what we are. We sprung from a single-celled organism that was swimming in a swamp. Cue the Richard Wagner music in the back. Cue the music from Fantasia in the back. And it's all just grim, eerie, gloomy, empty, depressing talk. There is no purpose in life. There is no God. There is no reason for our existence. There is no spiritual purpose. There is no existential. There's no powerful existentialism. Humanity has zero significance at all. Nothing, zip, nada. We are all just walking giant forms of bacteria, just soulless organisms, aimlessly walking about on this giant rock on space. And our ancestors were bacteria that was swimming in a swamp. That's right. That's right. That's right, everybody. And then you watch the atheist documentaries, and they think it's just an amazing idea to make you think that this is true, to make you think this way. And we all know the result of thinking in such a manner. You see human life as nothing. And then you read Darwin, and he's talking about how extermination is just a part of nature. And you think, okay, well, there is no God. There is no justification for morality. There is no significance to humankind. So why not do experiments on human beings? Why not put human beings in concentration camps and exterminate them? I mean, this is nature, right? Nature is about a brutal struggle for survival, and it is through this struggle for survival that our ancestors evolved, according to Darwin and the rest of these maniacs. So let's just continue the process of evolution and let us be the natural selectors of all humanity. And bam, you have concentration camps, you have mass murder. This is where you have Hitler and Stalin and Mao and all these people who were mass murderers. And what was the thing that sort of united them? You could say, well, in some cases it was socialism, sure, but at the same time, what united them was Darwinism. It was this atheistic perspective, or this perspective that is fixated on scientism, where human beings are seen as just potential guinea pigs that you can put under a microscope. And that's it. You have nothing. And this film really, really conveys this feeling, right? The vibe of atheism, which is empty and soulless and just insignificant. That feeling is perfectly conveyed in this movie, by this movie. And when you watch this film, you are going to feel the vibe of atheism, and it doesn't feel good. And so this guy, he is basically an atheist, and he just doesn't see a significance to anything. He doesn't see the sacredness of humanity. And he wants to use these girls as his guinea pigs. And this is where the film gets really dark, really fast. And he begins to question their faith. And he begins to say, well, I'm going to put your faith to the test. So he gives them two doors. On one door has the word belief, and on the other door has the word disbelief. And he says, pick your door. Which door do you want to go? Well, the girl who was born in Utah, the Utah girl, she's terrified. She is absolutely terrified. She has fallen for the trap, and now she has to face this trap. And it's very depressing to see this, very grim. And so she says, let's choose the disbelief door, because obviously this guy hates God, he hates religion. Let's just please him so we can get out of here with our lives. And the other girl, the girl who didn't seem as assured of her religion in the beginning on the surface, she says, no, this guy is not going to let us go. He's not going to be merciful towards us. All that we have right now in this moment is our faith. So let's just go by our faith and let the cards lay where they lay. And that's that. Let the ball bounce the way the ball's going to bounce. You're not going to convince this guy to do something good. You're not going to convince him to spare your life. We have to just go by our faith. That's all we have at this moment. And this is one of the best scenes in the whole movie. And you're going to say, well, it's Mormonism. That's not the point. The philosophy that, or the worldview, or her perspective in this moment, nonetheless, notwithstanding her religion, nonetheless, her perspective is correct. When somebody wants to kill you for your religion, you're not going to convince them to let you go. That's not going to happen. And in that moment, all you do have is your faith. So that her perspective can be applied to your Christian life. If someone's going to kill you for your Christian faith, you're not going to convince them otherwise. They're going to kill you because they hate you. They hate what you stand for. It's like what Jesus said, if the world hates you, they hate you because of me. He said that the world hated me before they hated you. You're not going to convince them to let you go. That's impossible. It's like when they told Peter, we're going to crucify you. And he said, just make the cross go upside down, because I'm not worthy to be crucified like my Lord. Peter didn't try to convince his persecutors to let him go. Paul was sentenced to death. He was crucified. That was it. St. John that guy was fried in olive oil alive. These guys weren't going to convince their persecutors to let them go. And all they did have in those moments was their faith. So the girl's perspective in this scene is correct. And she says, no, we're choosing the door of belief. This guy hates religion. There's nothing we can do. We're choosing the belief door, and they go down the belief door. The thing is that both doors led to the same room. And the room is essentially the psychological torture chamber. And he is blaspheming their religion, and he's constantly demeaning them, constantly bringing down their hope. And it's quite scary. I think this is really I think the film is horrifying. Now, in one of my last videos, I talked about a South Korean horror movie called Exuma. And Exuma was marketed as a horror movie, but there's absolutely nothing scary about the movie at all. And there's a lot of films that are marketed as horror movies that aren't scary at all. I mean, at all. So, for example, I think the latest Conjuring movie was not scary at all. In fact, 20 minutes into the film, I just turned the film off because it was so terribly directed. And then you have... the first Exorcist film was horrifying, but if you look at Exorcist 2, Exorcist 3, these films are not scary at all. Exorcist 3, even though a lot of people praise it, not scary at all. The film was hella boring. I'm trying to think of other examples. I think that the first Ouija board film was crap. Oh, the first Annabelle film. The doll was creepy, but the rest of the film, it just doesn't do the doll any justice, and the film really lost its swag and it fell flat. There's a lot of films out there that are marketed as horror films that aren't scary at all. They're just not. This movie was disturbing. It's not a supernatural horror movie. There's not things flying. There's not objects levitating. There's no demonic voices coming out of anyone's mouths. The film just depicts evil in its purest form. It depicts evil in the sheerest way possible. It's just sheer sinisterism. That's what this movie is. You have a guy who's, and they get the perfect actor, Hugh Grant, because as soon as you see him, he brings your guard down because he looks really nice, right? He looks like a really nice person on the surface. And he does a really good job in playing this character. He plays the nice guy, the clumsy intellectual Englishman who's hospitable and, oh, come in, my wife has a pie, and there is no wife. And he brings the girl's guards down. He does a really good job on this. And this is evil. People don't realize this. People think evil is just, the baddie, just right in your face. Everything is right in your face. And that is not the worst form of evil. The worst form of evil is the one that brings your guard down. It's the one that pulls you in. And that is the greatest form of evil. That is the worst of the worst because it's deceptive and it's going to bring a lot of people into a trap before it destroys those people. And the film just shows evil. That's what it is. He pulls them in, he plays with their minds, he toys with their trust, he toys with their sense of hope, he gives them a lot of false hope, and then he deflates them, he disillusions them, he just discombobulates them. He's constantly destabilizing them, giving them some hope and then bringing it down, giving them some hope and then bringing it down. He psychologically is torturing them. And this is a psychological horror movie. And it's, to me, I was watching this film and I'm thinking, this is scary. Like, I felt disturbed inside. Why did I feel so disturbed? Because I know that this reflects reality. That's the thing. It reflects reality because there have been a lot of people like this guy, Mr. Reed, as he's called in the film. There has been a lot of people like this guy in history, and there's a lot of people like this today where they hate religion. They don't care what religion you believe in. They don't care what religion you subscribe to. Mormonism, Islam, Judaism, Christianity. They hate you. And if they had all the power in the world, they would put you in camps and they would use you for human experimentation and they would kill you. I mean, they would put you in death camps. There's no doubt about it. Just look at the Soviet Union and how many Orthodox priests they murdered. Tens of thousands of Orthodox priests were murdered by the Soviet Union. It's not just the Soviet Union. You can see this sort of thing in the French Revolution, where you had people who were deists who said that Christianity was all just nonsense. And I think there was Rousseau, I know he admired Islam, but I think perhaps Voltaire had a hatred, or Montesquieu. There was maybe some other Enlightenment philosophers who hated Islam, but there was definitely a hatred towards religion. And in regards to the Enlightenment, there was specifically, especially a hatred towards the Roman Catholic Church, and they wanted to kill people because they were Catholic. And if you look at what the French revolutionaries did in the massacre of the Vendée, I mean, they tortured people to death. They murdered people in horrendous ways. They would drown them. They would take a bunch of people, strip them naked because they were Catholic, strip them naked, put them in ships, and then sink the ships and drown them all to death. It was just horror. That is horror. To me, horror is not this devil with horns and a tail and a pitchfork. To me, horror is sheer human evil. Sheer human evil that is rooted in the diabolical. And this film really reflects this. It really briefly puts all this in a simple movie. And yeah. Now, the film, it has been said that the film depicts the naivete of religion, but it also depicts the evil of anti-religion. And at the end of the film, this guy, Mr. Reed, this Mr. Dawkins type, he says that he spent all of his life studying religion, and he wanted to know what was the original religion. What was the religion that started it all? And he concludes that the original religion was the religion of power, the religion of might makes right. And he says that this is the religion that he follows. So he follows the religion of might makes right, the religion of control, the religion of I can hurt you because I can, because I'm stronger than you. And these are ladies, and he's a male, and he's stronger than them. And so he says, well, I have the right to do these things to you, to torture you, to kill you. And this is Darwinism. Darwinism is the scientific ideology of might makes right. And the thing about evolutionism, they say, well, it's science. Even Michael Ruse, the famous English atheist, admitted that Darwinism can function like a religion, and that the atheist movement can function like a religion. And he uses the example of Darwin Day to evidence this. He says that the Christians have Jesus Day, but the evolutionists, they came up with Darwin Day. Well, why? Because it functions like a religion. And if you look at, for example, let's say Newton's discovery of gravity or something, or if you look at Einstein's theory of relativity, whatever. If you look at all of these different theories or these scientific discoveries, the discovery of electricity, for example, the discovery of the law of thermodynamics. If you look at all these laws, yeah, these are scientific discoveries, and they have actually helped society. They've helped society. They've helped us with technology. Things like calculus has helped us with engineering and making technology, better technology. The discovery of electricity. I mean, look at us now, right? Electricity is all over the place. I'm using electricity to power my computer, my camera, my microphone. So these are all discoveries that have bettered mankind. But if you look at what evolutionism did when it was quote unquote discovered, it wasn't just this case where people said, "Oh, look, we discovered this. Wow, an amazing discovery." If you look at the history of evolutionism, it was it was it was a situation in which you had people like Charles Darwin coming out saying, look at what we discovered," and then it shifted quickly to look at how this can change our entire perspective on human life and humanity, and look at how this discovery has given us the green light to completely gut and eviscerate and just remove any sense of the sacredness of mankind. And look at how evolutionism has given us the right to completely disregard the significance of humanity and the significance of human life. And look at how evolutionism has given us the justification to orchestrate genocide. And that's what happens not too long after the discovery of evolutionism. You have all these various genocides that are done by various European countries. You have the Ottoman Empire genociding the Armenians. You have the Germans genociding the people in Namibia, the Nama people and the Herero. You have the Australians, the English, the white Australians genociding Aboriginals. And they all, one thing that all these countries have, one thing that overlaps between all these different peoples, these genocides, is that Darwinism was at the foundation of justifying these genocides. The Ottomans used it, the Germans used it, the white Australians used it. And if you look at one of the precursors, and this is another example of what I mean by the English being masters in the sport of God hating. If you look at the Irish potato famine, which was really a genocide that was orchestrated by the English utilized Malthusianism to justify it. Malthusianism was one of the precursors of evolutionism. In fact, it was Thomas Malthus that really was the main influence for Charles Darwin. Because Malthus taught that there's not enough food to go around for the whole population, so we need to have population control. We need to depopulate the earth so that way we have a good balance between human population and the amount of food that we have. And so if we're going to do depopulation, might as well just allow the inferior to be starved to death, because this is the law of nature. And so by allowing those to starve to death, then we allow just for people with good genes to procreate, and then we actually better the human species by doing this. And so Darwin took this as a principle, as a foundation for the theory of evolutionism. And so then what happened was the English said, okay, well, the Irish are, their potato crops have gone through a blight. Their harvest is pretty small. We're going to take the potatoes from them and let them starve to death, and we're not going to help them at all. And Malthus taught that there's not enough food for all the world's population, so we might as well just allow the inferior to starve to death, and that's what we're going to do. So, after Malthusianism, after Darwinism, you start seeing these genocides being done, and it's not like the discovery of electricity where we say, "Oh, look, electricity! Wow, we can, we look how much we've bettered society. Oh, look, the discovery of the law of thermodynamics. Oh, look, the discovery of calculus. Oh, look, the discovery of all these ideas which have bettered mankind. The discovery of this medicine." Evolutionism isn't like that at all. Evolutionism is, look, we discovered that we evolved from lower species and that our first ancestors were literally bacteria swimming in swamp, or as Darwin said, a singular cell organism that was in a swamp or something like that, primordial soup. And you just see the world like it's a Fantasia movie. And everything becomes empty. Everything becomes jejune and cold and callous and soulless, and it just becomes bare bones. And it becomes as cold as the soul of England. And so you have no regard for humanity. And then you have genocide. So evolutionism hasn't bettered humanity. Evolutionism, it's just it's a philosophy. And it's something that has been used to completely disregard the sacredness of human life. And you see that evil reflected so perfectly in this movie, Heretic. so perfectly. And he says, my religion is might makes right. That's Darwinism. That's Darwinism. And the film does such a good job in just conveying that feeling of atheism and what atheism is and how soulless it is and how evil it is. Anyway, it's a good movie. And yeah, I thought it was well done. And I will say it's one of the best horror films I've ever seen. Truly, I would say it's right up there with The Exorcist and Hereditary and Long Legs. Long Legs was a great movie. Very well done movie. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.